Hello, listeners. Our minds are a wonderful thing. They control our consciousness, thoughts, sight, and even our unconscious functions. But it can also be fragile and fickle. It can alter our perspective on life, producing coping mechanisms, much like my favorite characters, Foster, Logan, and Merrick. Or it can be damaged to a point that is beyond repair. You see, even though the mind is powerful, it is easily broken. And in this next research file, we will be exploring what that damage can do. So, strap in tight. The trials are about to begin.
The roar of the crowd always felt like thunder. The cheers that shook the stadium would echo inside of my skull, pounding against the walls of my mind. I used to feel powerful, full, and energized by the noise. But tonight, it's different. It's hard to explain, but it's like the voices of the crowd are inside me, bouncing off the walls of my mind and swelling behind my eyes. The pressure builds and builds, and I feel the moment it all turns. I'm in a haze, and I'm seeing double. The world itself tilts. I sit on the edge of the bench, the scent of sweat and artificial grass thick in the air. My helmet rests between my hands, but the weight of it feels unbearable, like it's made of lead. Coach barks something about keeping our head in the game and about focus, but I can barely hear him. My vision blurs, and the walls of the stadium seem to bend, warping around me like the universe is closing in. Then it happens. My eyes dilate, and I begin to feel a coldness sweep my body, sending shivers down my spine. I drop my helmet to the ground and rub my hands over my eyes, pressing hard until streaks of color and flashes of white begin to dance along my sight. The whistle blows, and I open my eyes to see a man standing on the sideline, positioned in my direction. I would say he was staring at me, but he didn't have the top of his head to stare with. His skull was ragged and open, as if he had taken a shotgun blast from under the chin. The skin peeled back and eviscerated. Maggots crawled around the open wounds, and thick green flies bubbled and crawled out of his rotting flesh. I just stare back at him, fear gripping me. I want to turn my gaze, but I can't. Finally, I blink, and he's gone. It was just my head playing tricks on me. I begin to regain my composure, and realization sets in. I know what's happening. I've heard the stories. CTE, the doctors call it, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It causes little pockets within your brain where trauma has caused the cellular structure to deteriorate. Common effects are increased anger, poor decision making, and an aptitude towards violence. Playing the game as long as I have and suffering the impacts I did, it was no wonder this was all happening to me. I should have hung up the cleats and opted out of the draft. Then maybe I wouldn't be in this situation right now. But regardless, I made my choice, and I am now dealing with the consequences. I'm back on the field. The first snap comes fast. My body moves automatically from decades of muscle memory, but my mind begins to go somewhere else. Like I'm in a zone and nothing else matters in the world except for this play right here, right now. Without even realizing it, I know it's a run play. I look to the backfield, searching for the running back, and I see them in the distance, like static apparitions, still and calm. Their dead faces lock onto me. Their eyes are hollow, their jaws slack, skin hanging loosely from their bones like rotting leather. I shake my head, trying to clear them from my sight, trying my best to focus. The sea gap opens up, covering the ghostly figures, and there he is, the running back, breaking through and looking downfield for an opening. I rush forward, but everything feels wrong. It's like I'm running through water. My feet are heavy, the air is thick. The running back doesn't even seem to see me coming. He's focused down the field at the open end zone in front of him. And I shoot in like a cannonball, lowering my shoulders and driving with everything I have from my hips down to the balls of my feet. As I make contact to begin to drive him to the ground, I can see his face within the helmet. Time slows, and that pressure fills back up behind my eyes as the world around me seems to shake. Something must have jostled upstairs in my head when I made the hit. I was sure I was suffering from another minor concussion. A ringing slowly began to build within my eardrums, getting louder and louder. I feel my eyes begin to roll back, and I fight with everything I have to stay awake. I can't be pulled from this game. My team needs me. And more than that, I was only 5 tackles away from a $250,000 bonus. I scream within my mind to stay awake, and I feel the pressure release, just a little. He hits the ground, me on top of him, and I watch as his head whips back violently, bouncing off the hard turf. Blood sprays out of his mouth and onto my face. This had to be another hallucination. I have never hit someone so hard that blood came flying out at me. But I could feel it, hot and thick, sliding down my forehead, between my eyes and down my mouth. I quickly get up and remove my own helmet and begin to furiously swipe at my face, trying my best to get the hot liquid off of me. I look down to him and realize he isn't moving. His eyes are wide open and his mouth hangs slack. He was just a kid, fresh from college, and drafted in the first round to be the running back of the future. I notice he isn't breathing. Oh fuck. Did I just kill this kid? I wave in the opposing team's bench to get him medical help. A hit like that, his head bouncing off the hard ground and the blood spraying out wasn't a good sign. And not to mention that he wasn't breathing. Or if he was, it was so shallow that I couldn't see it. I stepped back, my heart pounding, breath ragged, and his body lay there lifeless. I hear screaming, but it sounds like voices under the water. The whistle is blown again, and I look over to my bench to see the defensive coach yelling at me. His veins protruding from his neck and his face deep red. One of my teammates runs up to me and puts his hand on my back, causing me to jump. He motions for me to get to the sideline, and I quickly make my way over to the bench. I take looks behind me as we quickly jog over to the sideline. He isn't moving, and his face, that vacant look to the heavens, it made me almost sick. I just kept mumbling to myself, I killed him. I fucking killed him. I get to the sideline and my coach is on my ass, screaming in my ear, asking me what the fuck I was thinking, and asking me if I had lost my damn mind, asking me if I was trying to sabotage the game. I ignore him, finding my spot on the bench, and he follows, getting right up in my face and grabbing me by the collar of my pads. I look past him and onto the field. His body was there, inert, and no medical staff around. A pool of blood now soaking into the artificial grass, mixing with the green and turning it a deep, dark red. I watched as the opposing team's offense lined up and snapped the ball. Bodies began to trample the man as he lay there, his limbs twitching in every which direction, his head beginning to get pulverized into meaty, gelatinous stew. The pressure from all the weight of 300-pound plus men digging into his abdomen with hard plastic cleats ripped him open and spread his insides around like a wet mop on a linoleum floor. I feel a hard jerk on my pads again, and I see the once red and puckered face of my coach now turning ghostly white, his brows furrowed, and concern swept his expression. He patted my shoulder pads and told me to get to the blue tent for analysis. I didn't say a word. I didn't look back out to the field. I just did what I was told.
Feel my soul breaking.
Needless to say, I was not called back onto the field that game. After a few tests and some careful sideline analysis, I was pulled. An apparent concussion, the doctor said. I would need to get a scan in the morning. So I sat there on the bench, my helmet on the rack behind me, and I stared off, doing my best to ignore the lifeless body of that kid as pieces of him were strewn across the field, scattered like fragments of some sick puzzle that could never be reassembled again. Now I knew he wasn't really there. There was no way they would allow for the game to keep going on like this. But try as I might, I could not get him to disappear from the field. No amount of blinking, shaking my head, or water to the face made him go away. And I was getting angry about it. Why was this motherfucker haunting me? Why was he ruining my chances at a payday? Fuck this guy. He deserves what he is getting. You know what? Fuck this team and fuck this game. It's all bullshit. It's all fucking bullshit. The pressure builds again as my rage continues on. I close my eyes. When I open them, I see all of them. The lifeless and rotting corpses of those who have played on this field before me. All of them with different wounds and injuries. Portions of their faces were gone from self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Necks were bent at odd angles, and deep purple-black rings resided within puffy pink-red welts from hangings. Wrists slit open as maggots and worms crawled out of the open wounds. Dried yellow and green vomit from overconsumption of illicit drugs or alcohol. Each figure had a story to tell, and every single one of them stared at me as if silently saying that it was my future. That I was next. The pressure behind my eyes grows more and more, and I shut them again, this time as tight as I can, and I scrunch up my face as the ringing comes back. The final whistle blows, my eyes open, and they are no longer there. I don't even attempt to go back out on the field to give my praises to the opposing players. I was in no mood for the camaraderie of the game. I just wanted to get home. So I hurry my way into the locker room, thinking to myself that a hot shower and some extra hydration and food will make me feel better. My head coach says something to me as I walk by him, but I couldn't quite make it out. I shoot him a vacant glance and continue my path for renewal. The locker room feels like a tomb, the air stale and unmoving. I'm the first one in here, and I'm not sure how long it will be before the others finally make their way in. The lights begin to flicker above me, buzzing overhead. They seem to do that from time to time, but I was really the only one who noticed it. I had asked my teammates about it, and they razzed me, saying I was just seeing shit. And shit, after today, maybe they've been right all along. Maybe these light flickers aren't what they appear to be. Maybe they are just a manifestation my mind has created. I find my locker and sit on the bench to undress. I rub my temples, trying to soothe the headache that begins to creep its way in. I hear a drip of water from the showers, and the voices of my teammates making their way down the long corridor. I grab my towel and head into the shower room. If I hurry, I will be the only one there, and I can get the hell out of this facility and home. I will deal with the coaches tomorrow, let them know what's going on, and potentially look into getting some better help. I feel that pang in my chest, that it can mean missing out on a $250,000 tackle bonus. But I'm sort of losing it right now, and I think I need some additional help. I turn the faucet on and listen to the static white noise of the water flowing. I let it warm up, watching the steam rise around me. I put my head back and allow for the water to run down my face. I close my eyes and breathe in the steam deep. I feel the tension within me subsiding, a sense of calm and peace. I hear the locker room door open and the chatter of my teammates. The sounds of the cleats echoing through the shower room. Fuck 'em, I think to myself. as I let the water begin to rejuvenate my body and mind. I feel a hand, icy, rough, touch my chest. My eyes shoot open and I let out a scream. In front of me were the deathly bodies of men I played with, men that I knew for sure to be dead, all dressed in their uniforms as if they were ready for the next play. They walked towards me, slowly with broken looks on their faces, looks only achieved from decades of hits that took them down on the field, their blood and rotting fluids beginning to mix with the water around me, running in streams towards my drain. I back away as the vile liquid flows quickly towards me. I look up to see them reaching out towards me, their fingers skeletal and their eyes changing to a look of hunger and need. They don't speak, but their mouths move, gaping open as if screaming, though no sound comes out. I stumble back, slipping on the wet tile, and I hit my head against the wall. My vision darkens and fades away as I watch the men begin to bend down to grab me. I am not sure how long I was out, but I wake up to the coach shaking me, telling me to snap out of it, asking what the hell's wrong. I try to answer, but I can't. I'm shaking, and I'm in so much pain. My body bruised and battered, but I don't remember how. The shower water shuts off, and I see the medical staff rush into the room and begin to work on me. I had cut the back of my head pretty bad, and I had to sit there, butt naked, through 5 stitches without any numbing solution. I stared out into the locker room and saw the looks of concern on my teammates' faces. But mixed in with the now gathering crowd were once again the dead. Those who loved and lived for the game. Who gave everything they had all the way to the end. Those who had their minds stolen from them and were discarded into oblivion, as if they never existed in the first place. It was at this moment that I knew that my time as a professional football player was over. I refused the trip to the hospital and got a ride home from one of my teammates. We talked about the game, and then the conversation turned towards what was going on with me. He said that right before I got pulled, I had been laid out by the running back. I guess I had popped back up and just took my helmet off and started wiping at my face. Everyone had thought that I had gotten scratched or something, and coach was screaming for me to get off the field and to get checked out. He said that I just stared at the ground like some weird zombie or something, like I was catatonic. The team called a timeout and I was moved over to the tent to get analyzed. The next thing he had seen was me lying on the shower, butt-ass naked and blood streaming from my head and down the drain. That wasn't how I remembered it at all. I told him that I thought that I was riding the bench for the rest of the game and was out there when the final whistle blew. A look of concern and disbelief crossed his face. He assured me that I was long gone by then. I just sat there in silence for a moment, contemplating his words, wondering if they were all true. And I felt that pressure begin to build again. But this time it was different. It started at the base of my spine and cupped the back of my head like a hand gently squeezing and painfully massaging my brain. My eyes went blank as resignation swept over me. I had to tell him something. I didn't quite feel like pouring my heart out to him about what I was feeling, what I knew was wrong, and what I was seeing. I didn't want to freak the guy out. So I blamed everything on a bad case of food poisoning, like the kind that just makes you violently ill and forget what is happening due to extreme dehydration. I said I had been feeling off since the morning and I knew that I should have probably not played that day, but I didn't want to let the team down. He seemed to accept that answer and even empathize with me with a story of his own. When we pulled up to my house, I thanked him for the ride and told him I would see him bright and early in the morning for post-game wrap-up. I shut the door knowing that this would probably be the last time I ever talked to him. I was going to hang up the cleats as soon as Coach got in the office at 4 a.m. He would be understanding and he would show me some empathy. I'm sure there will be some kind words of encouragement and discussion about an early release package. I turned towards my front door as he drove away, and I didn't even jump when I saw it. Standing at the top of my stairs was another figure. This one nearly skeletonized, with only small bits of flesh clinging to the bones underneath. These ghosts just won't leave me. This is my life now, probably until the day I die. I blink, and he is gone. I take a deep breath and begin to walk up to my house. Fuck these ghosts, man. I just need my wife right now. I need to pour out everything I am feeling and seeing to her. She needs to know that her man is suffering and that her man just may be done with his career. A tear falls down my cheek at that thought. I know she will be by my side through it all. We've been through worse, trust me. We were high school sweethearts, and whenever I went for my career, she was right there by my side as my biggest fan and supporter. I stand at the bottom of the steps and the front door opens, and there she is, her pearly white teeth gleaming back at me, and I smile. I take my first step towards her, and a hand falls on my shoulder. I feel its grip tighten as I am pulled backwards, and I fall into an endless void, kicking and screaming. Looking back at me is my wife. Her smile fades as more and more distance grows between us. She raises her hand up towards her face as if to block something, and I am consumed with darkness. I come back to consciousness, and I am behind the wheel of my wife's SUV, speeding down the now dark and abandoned highway. The coppery smell of blood hangs in the air, and I look down to my hands as I pass under a streetlight. There is something on them, and it shines dully. I slow the vehicle from the 120 miles per hour I was driving to a more manageable 65, and I turn on the accessory light. My heart drops as I see the now drying blood all over me. I begin to panic, taking my hands from the wheel and assessing my body, looking for any sort of wound or pain that may explain what the hell happened to me. I searched and searched, all the while I kept driving, the speed once again increasing gradually. The blood was fucking everywhere, all up my arms, on my clothes, in my hair, and on my face. I look in the rearview mirror, and my heart stops. Sitting there, lifeless in the back seat, was her. Her eyes staring out into the night, just like the boy's eyes on the field. Her jaw hung askew from her face, and her cheeks had swollen so much on one side that it almost looked like she was having an allergic reaction to something. The car hit a bump in the road, lolling her head forward before snapping it back. And I noticed it. This wasn't some allergic reaction. Her throat was slit so deep and so aggressively that the only thing that kept it intact was her spinal column. My eyes searched her as I began to notice deep puncture wounds on her chest and a gash along her abdomen that spilled her insides into her lap. I let out a cry of agony. What have I done? What have I done? I feel the pressure begin to build once again behind my eyes as I gaze back at her and then to the road. A headache hits me out of nowhere, the pounding in my skull harder than I have ever felt before. My vision once again doubles and blurs, pulsating in and out in rapid succession. And then I see them. The corpses of players long since passed. They're standing in the middle of the road, stretching further back than what my headlights allow for me to see. The world grows silent as all at once their mouths open and blinding light begins to shine on my face, burning into my retinas as I approach. That feeling of anger hits me out of nowhere, and I slam my foot on the gas pedal, ready to plow through these